Emma and Ethan were part of a growing class of remote professionals who traded the noise of the city for the silence of the isolated Rocky Mountains. They ran a successful business from this vintage yellow cabin, miles from the nearest neighbor. For people whose careers depend on digital precision and constant connectivity, a retreat like this offers a sense of total environmental mastery. You choose the view, the pace, and the boundary between yourself and the rest of the world. That control evaporated the moment Emma stepped inside. The house was clean and empty, yet it carried an aggressive, thick scent, a stench of organic decay that seemed to be coming from the walls themselves. Even the food they brought with them couldn't withstand the atmosphere. Fresh vegetables Emma had just purchased were found hollowed out and black on the inside, serving as a breeding ground for clusters of dark insects. At 4:30 in the morning, the situation shifted from unsettling to dangerous. Emma found Ethan in the backyard, plunging a shovel into the frozen mud. He was digging a deep, human-sized trench in his sleep, his face fixed in a wide, dead-eyed smile. Ethan woke up with no memory of the yard or the shovel. These weren't just standard maintenance issues. The very physics of their new home seemed to be targeting their physical and mental stability. Guided by a persistent dragging sound, Emma discovered a hidden door beneath the stairs leading to a basement. The air there was thick with the smoke of smoldering, bitter herbs, and in the corner she saw Ethan sitting motionless, staring at a black bottle, while a tall, matted figure with white eyes stood directly behind him. The house operates on a specific mechanical loop. The influence originates in the basement, moving upward through the floorboards to create a physical tether to the people sleeping above. The scent of the burning herbs acts as the trigger. These fumes help induce a hypnotic state that allows the figure in the basement to command the physical movements of the sleepers, effectively turning Ethan into a tool for the entity's work in the yard. Emma's first realization of this connection came through a false awakening. She dreamt of digging in the dirt until her fingernails snapped and her hands bled, only to wake up in bed, relieved that the experience was over. But as she reached for the lamp, she saw the dream followed her into the room. Her hands were covered in physical mud and dried, dark blood, proving the bridge between the basement and her subconscious was wide open. This is the entity's primary method of control. By blurring the line between the dream and the waking world, it ensures the victim can no longer trust their own senses to determine if they are actually awake. The cabin soon entered a state of total lockdown. The doors and windows slammed shut and fused in their frames. The light bulbs shattered in small explosions, and the smell of ritual herbs became thick enough to choke on. Ethan emerged from the dark hallway with a rusted axe, his pupils gone, as the rotting apparition of a man drifted through the air behind him. The environment had been completely reconfigured into a predatory space. Emma was attacked and woke up again. It was 3 a.m. Her hands were clean, and Ethan was asleep beside her. She was trapped in a nested loop, a nightmare within a nightmare designed to exhaust her resistance. When she ran back to the bedroom, she found Ethan's body levitating several feet above the mattress. He was thrashing violently, his rigid limbs straining against invisible forces that held him suspended in the air. His body suddenly dropped, hitting the floor with a heavy thud. Emma rushed to turn him over, but the face looking back at her wasn't Ethan's. It was the witch from the basement, who pinned her to the floor and began to systematically cut off her air supply. The goal of these loops is to detach the consciousness from the body. By the time Emma lost consciousness for the final time, her mind was effectively locked inside the nightmare version of the cabin, while her physical form slipped into a state the doctors couldn't explain. Ethan rushed Emma to a major hospital, but clinical tests showed a healthy brain with no activity. No amount of modern intervention could reach a mind that had been moved to a different plane of reality. Ethan returned to the cabin only to meet a ghost of an old man who offered the final piece of the puzzle. This vast mountain ridge was an ancient graveyard, and the cabin was merely a lure built on top of a feeding ground. The entity in the basement functions like a parasite, creating these nightmare loops to drain the life force of those trapped inside. But Ethan broke the connection by abandoning the property, cutting off her access to their subconscious and causing her influence to wither. A final spiritual cleansing severed the remaining ties. Days later, Emma woke from her coma, describing how she had been hunted through a dark, endless version of their home until the moment the property was left behind. A beautiful setting can be a mask for a predatory reality. When isolation is met with sensory warnings that defy logic, the only survival strategy is to leave immediately. The risk of staying to understand the mystery is far greater than the value of the view.